Okay, there's been a lot of requests for a very simple tutorial into how color match works. So I wanted to go into this one, which is some really simple colors, and really just talk about the hows and whats of the different parts of color match without getting into a lot of little nitty gritty technical details. So I really just want to give the very basics of what color match is doing and how it works. So this is how, if you were to come in, you'd load your image into standard mode, it would look like this. Then you'd switch to color match and you'd get this. One thing to note is that when you look at the mesh, and I have this in wireframe just to show this, you can see here that the black is at the bottom and the white is at the top. Now I'm going to click over, this arrow will flip it, or I can double click in this space, or you can just click on any one of these meshes and switch the view. Now because the sliders are identical, this is going to be identical, but as we change things, this will update. It's very important that you start by adjusting your mesh core. The mesh core is what is going to define your custom luminance function. What do I mean by that? Well, let me show you an example here. This is a big white background image, and that white background can take a really long time to print if it's all the way at the top. So one of the things we can do is I'm going to go ahead and control click, or on Apple command click and mouse wheel up a little bit to move the black up, just to give myself room. Then I'm going to take this white and I'm going to drag it down. Now you see as I drag it, it moves, and now you can see that the mesh is actually above. The black is now above the white. The white moved down. Let me do that again. I'll bring this up. You can see as I bring it up, the mesh moves up until it's basically right equal with the black. And here I can bring it down. It's below the black. So as I move this, HueForge is actively updating the mesh to match. So what does that mean? Well, this white pixel matches this color on the mesh core the best. And that's really what it's looking for. It looks at every pixel here and it says, well, these are all, and in this case, they're all the same color, but they're all FFF, right? But the layer in the mesh core that matches best is this layer 10. It's not allowed to match too much below. It can match a little below, but this layer is the best match, so it matches at layer 10. Now this is not actually black, and you can see that it's actually matching this a little bit above. It's actually matching the first layer above the black into the gray. Because this is actually not actually black, it is, see that it's a kind of gray. Now we can force that to match by, you click on the image, control click, drag that color here. Let's replace our black with that color. And now you can see that it actually matches down at the bottom. Now this is a common issue people have when matching dark colors, is that it saturates very quickly, and then color match will always match the lowest layer. So we're going to come in here and we will just disable these layers. And as I disable them, you see that this section gets taller and taller. So I think we'll disable up to about there. We can move this down. And now we have our black here and then our disabled layers around it. Or disabled to give us 3 or 4 layers to make sure it's fully saturated. Turn off the wireframe, you can see that it's going to look pretty solid black. Now the edges are a little bit gray. You see that little bit of gray on the edges? What's going on there? Well, if you zoom in on this image, even on a very simple image, the anti-aliasing is going to make this edges a variety of colors. See how some are gray, some are light gray, some are dark gray. Well, that's matching with this. If I remove this entirely and this entirely, you're going to see it goes to a solid black. But that's not actually reasonable, so what we'll do actually is we'll come down here and we'll bring our gray into here so that it's underneath. We'll enable these layers. So the gray is actually underneath that black. Then we'll give ourselves a couple of layers of black. Okay, so that's actually cleaned this up a ton. So this is a tip for you. A lot of times people try and they get these really ugly, gross edges, and that's because of this anti-aliasing effect. If you can make your image, if you're controlling the source image and you can not do anti-aliasing on it, it will be a little bit chunkier, but it won't have this issue in color match. And the issue is that color match is literally trying to match against all those pixels. Okay, so now what's the next thing to do? The next thing is we probably want to match our red. And again, you can just click on the image, control click, and drag. And now you'll see that what happened. Well, all these sections that are basically red have now matched up with this red. Now, when you bring this in, it's going to automatically have a TD of 1. That's probably not correct for most of your red filaments. I know that the Prusa Mint lipstick red is 2, so if you hit P while hovering over here and then use your mouse wheel, you can change that to be like a 2 or a 3, which will be a little bit more appropriate. Now we want to do probably the yellow. We'll grab this yellow color, or we can grab a yellow from our library. You don't have to use image colors. Let's get Yellowbird. My favorite yellow from Printed Solid. Unfortunately, as far as I know, it's only available in the US. Maybe talk to Prusa about getting them to take it elsewhere. Okay, so now we've brought our yellow up. And you see here now, okay, when we're down here, what's happening, right? The oranges are matching, but we're not getting any matches for this yellow. Why? Because that yellow is defining the very top of the mesh. So dynamic mode doesn't really do anything in here. Static mode doesn't really do anything in here. It really kind of should be disabled. But basically, this top slider here is defining the top of the mesh. So even though you see all this yellow up here, it's not going to be matched against. So we need to bring that up to give ourselves the ability to match against that yellow. Now if we look, again, you'll see that the yellow is up top here. It's on the top. Let me turn on the wireframe. Makes it a little bit easier to see. That we have the red down here, right? And the dark red is even lower. And then we have the yellow up here, and the orange is down a little bit from that yellow, right? The orange is lower down than the yellow. So you can see it next to the yellow here. And so what Color Match is doing is literally rebuilding the mesh on the fly as you add colors to the mesh core. This is why we call it a custom luminance function. So a luminance function is just an idea of how you define what the brightness of an image is. And maybe that's not quite the right word here. We're basically making a custom function to define where the heights of what colors are in the image. So this gives you very good control over how the mesh is going to look when it's done printing. Now you'll see here that not all these colors match exactly. You know, this is kind of a different color here. It's not a dark red. You'll see also here we have this little spot here that doesn't quite match anything. It's kind of a dark orange color. It doesn't really match in the orange range. So what we're going to do is we're going to grab this and we'll put it probably at the bottom of the orange range here. Increase its TD a little bit so it can blend more. There. And then we have, there we go. So then we'll have a little bit more of that blend there. We'll bring the yellow up more to get a good yellow. Now you might find that this yellow is not quite as bright as you want it. So in that case you could say, let me grab a little bit of white and put it on top of the yellow and see if that makes a difference. I don't really see a big difference, but it's always worth trying. There is a little bit of a difference. In color match mode, I always recommend that you run with fast or moderate spike removal. This is because a lot of times when you have little issues with like two areas kind of matching the same, the issue here, right, is if I bring another black up here or I bring another white up here, I might start getting close to a previous white or a previous black. And the spike removal can really help with that. Though in this image it's very clean because I picked an image that would be very easy to do color match on. This is a quick, really intro tutorial to how color match works. More on the theory side and the physical side of how HueForge does it, and less on the how to get a good HueForge out of any image. That's another topic. It seems like color match would be super easy and do everything for you. It doesn't. You have to make a lot of choices yourself. But I wanted to go through how picking the layer, how color match actually manipulates the mesh and changes things. So what else could we do here? Well, we could decide that we want the white on top. Nothing wrong with that. If we decide we want the white on top, though, now it's grown out, and we've lost most of our grays, right? Our grays were underneath our black. So generally what you want to do there is we'll disable these, or turn off those disables, bring this down to basically the bottom, and we'll actually still bring a little bit of white here. And that white's going to let us do gray blends, right? We can actually probably take this gray out of here and just do gray blends from this white. If we go too high, it's going to bring too much of our white down. But it'll let us do gray blends. Or the other option here is we could actually bring the black all the way to the top. Let's bring the black up above the yellow. We'll disable this layer here so that makes sure it gets saturated black. And now we're doing our gray up at the top, above everything else. So and then look, we have all these saturation marks here. We can bring these reds down. Control mouse wheel or control arrow keys. Drag doesn't work. because control drag will copy a slider color. I'll have to reset that down here to make sure we get at least 2 layers of that black. And if you look now, you'll see, what do you expect? Well, the white's on top again, the way we said, and the black is next, and then all the red and yellow is down below. It's on the bottom, and it's recessed. And that may be the look you're going for. It's going to have a longer print time. There's absolutely nothing wrong with this. This is just a choice you make when you build a mesh for color match. Which order do you want the colors to be in? That's really what you're spending a lot of your time on, is what is the color order for your color match. Hopefully this is helpful and helps you have an understanding of how color match is handling what you're doing on the mesh core. We haven't put colors or filaments on here. This is not something that I wanted to talk about in this video. I just want to talk about how the mesh core works and what it does in terms of building the HueForge mesh that you're going to end up coloring and printing later. Hopefully this is helpful, and happy HueForging.